To me, I've always been interested in international planning. My actual career, which I've now retired from, was in local government. But through being involved with the Royal Town Planning Institute in Britain in the 80s, I was then encouraged to take a lot of interest in international matters by the then president, David Fryer, who sadly died in the 90s. And so I was encouraged to join IFHP early 90s, and it gave me an interest in looking around the world, what was happening around the world, and in cities and urban areas, which I was working in Britain on, elsewhere. So I do find it very interesting. The other thing which I think is important about IFHP is not to do necessarily with cities, but it gives people an opportunity, if in professional life, to actually go back to their profession and the interests of their profession. Because as you go through professional life, particularly like me in local government, you get drawn away from, say, planning into the kind of the administration of the organisation, which takes precedent over your actual professionalism. And it gives you the opportunity to think things through as a professional, as a planner, or whatever, and I think that's very important. There is actually a phrase that people tend to use which says that you can learn from history to help the future. It's not the only thing you can do, but there's a lot, what I've found anyway, in the history and what's gone on in the past, because there's quite a lot of investigatory work done by members of IFHP in the past, that in fact, rather than reinvent it, you can almost kind of use what's been found in the past for the future. And what you will find is that in planning and housing, that there's quite a kind of cyclical movement. And a lot of people are talking about the same kind of things today, congestion, problems of traffic, cars and whatever, housing problems, that they've been talking about in the past. So IFHP has information that can be used for that. It was a few years ago when Derek first started, and I was talking to him in Copenhagen. And we were talking about one or two other things about books. And he said, well, would you be interested in looking at the history of IFHP? In 2013, we've got the centenary, and it would be rather nice if you could kind of see whether there's anything, a little kind of, well, a booklet, or just tell us about what the background is. And so, rather kind of, I won't say grudgingly, but I said yes, I'll do that. And so I began to look through, and what I found was that those people who knew the history of IFHP have gone. And the current people at that time really didn't know what had gone on. They knew that Ebenezer Howard had been involved at the beginning, and they knew it was about garden cities at the beginning, but they knew nothing else. And because I realised that it had started in Britain and was now in The Hague, and I thought, well, there must be something there. So I did some investigation, first of all, on the internet, and then I was invited to go to The Hague to have a look at their archives, but I was told to put all your old gear on because it's mucky. So I went up into the top room, the attic in The Hague, and there was a real dusty room with lots of cobwebs, and in amongst all the cobwebs and cupboards that didn't open properly was a whole welter of information and quite valuable material. For example, there's material with original signatures of Ebenezer Howard. There was old pictures, photographs taken 100 years ago nearly, and also some very good old reels. But then there's a whole list of everything that's gone on. So I got quite interested in this, and then I found that IFHP had got quite a colourful history. and it had attracted very eminent people in the past, as it does now, people whose names were rolling off the tongue, as it were, at the time, like, for example, in Britain, Neville Chamberlain, who was Prime Minister before the war, and eminent planners, geographers, and then amongst that there were some interesting stories of what had gone on, and it seemed very colourful. And so I began to kind of put it all together, and I then kind of gave Derek a little bit of an insight into what was in it, and he said, "Hey, this is worth going for. This is worth getting a book." And so we worked on from there. It's been slow. There's been a lot of investigation required, and I've been various places to photograph, to look at things, and hopefully when it comes out it'll be interesting.